All right. Hopefully, after the last video, you got Postgres installed on whatever system you're using. Now we want to enter Postgres, set up a user, set up a database, and see if we can run the migrations on that database so that we are using it. So I'm following some documentation here. To start, I ran, oops, that's not what I want. Give me a second. I think I'd like to start a new window. I'm just going to scroll up right there. So I'm on this bottom window. Let me exit Postgres. So I'm psql Postgres, which says run psql with the Postgres user, I believe, which allows us to enter Postgres. First thing you want to do is create a new user. So create role with login password. Create role. Okay. So I set up everything as an example just to, well, for an example. I wouldn't do this in another scenario. And I'm also just going to give them super user so that they can do everything. I keep running clear out of habit. And now in PG admin, I don't want that. So skip the rest of that tutorial. We're going to create a database called example. Boom. Now we can exit, clear that. And if we go look at our Postgres files again, so we have this PD service one, which defines localhost is where the database is, the user is example, the database is example, and then in PG pass, this is database, user, and password, so it's all example. Hypothetically, we should be able to run migrate now, I believe, and it will just magically work. So let's see. Didn't work. Definition of my service not found. So why does it call it? Oh, using a service name for testing purposes is not. This may be implemented later. Does that mean like actually running tests, or does that mean running it locally? Let's Google the command because that's their default name, so we should actually find something for it. Someone else running into the same issue, perhaps? Yeah, this is what I'm used to. Let's just do this. We can set up a service file maybe later if we need to, but I'm actually not clear of what the advantages are. So instead of doing this like file stuff, you can just put everything in here. So ideally these are environment variables, which we are probably going to set up next. But this is example, example, example. Now we can delete this file, delete that file. And now everything's just set up in there. So let's go back to the terminal and try that again. The other thing we can do is just run server, see if it does anything. Yeah, so it's saying we need to run migrations, which we shouldn't have to because we did previously on our SQLite database, but we didn't do it on our Postgres database. Now we can just run migrate, boom, boom, boom. And let's see if psql Postgres, psql, no wait, connect. So /c is connect to database. We have a database example that we just created. And -l is list tables, DT. There we go. So in our database, we have those tables, which means the migrations ran and they created the tables. Let's get out of here. There we go. So we have a Postgres database running. I'm going to delete our old SQLite database because we'll never need it again. And I'm also going to create that second application. So Python manage.py, start app, and we were going to create a users app. Boom. We go back here. We now have our boilerplate, our example app, and our users app. From here, perhaps it's best that we set up environment variables for this, because generally you don't want to commit any sort of passwords or secrets or tokens or anything into your repository, so we should set up environment variables as soon as possible. I'm not sure what the best tools are for that right now, or the most modern ones. This article's from 2 years ago. Let's actually just use the official docs. Environment variable. Okay, that's not helpful. I really thought this was going to be advice on how to set that up, but I have used this before, so I think this might be a good one. Can I see how often this is updated? Okay, used by a lot, updated pretty regularly. Pretty sure I've used it before, so I'm feeling good about it. Quick start. Actually install first, probably, eh? So make sure wait, let me make sure yeah, install it. We don't want the unstable version. Make sure your virtual environment is running. You have the little vim there, and then you can install Django environ. Let's go to the quick start. I'm just going to copy all of this because that's a lot of the stuff at the top of the file anyway. So if we go to the top of our settings, we can delete all that. So you see, here's our secret key there. Debug is also a great one because of casting above. And base directory, just like another way of writing this, I believe, but we can just keep that one. Move this up here. Move that. Yes, keep your secret key private. We talked about that. Debug is also just defined up there. Application definition. These comments are all like very helpful when you're learning the application, so feel free to read through them and then delete them when you're feeling comfortable. Here's the casting for debug. All right, so you can see here we're defining base directory and then it's reading a file, and this is the file that we actually want to read with our environment variables. So here we want to create that environment file, and I'm going to create a sample as well because one of them can be full of non-sensitive things, just as an example, and one of them can be full of sensitive things that's never committed. On that note, we'll also want a get ignore file. Hopefully you haven't committed anything yet, because ideally you have a get ignore file before you start committing. One thing we definitely want to ignore is the environment file. And is this in the... Yeah, we have a lot of like kind of setup to do right now, actually. So you also don't want to commit your vim folder because that can be regenerated. It's sort of like a node modules folder if you're familiar with JavaScript. It just has all the packages that you've installed. but we're going to make this project right here the Git repository anyway, so the git ignore is in the right spot. Ignore the environment file. That's what we've done. So now in our environment file, let's just save that. There's a few already defined. So debug. Debug is like allows you to have debug tools. Is it? Yeah, there we go. Secret key is used for encryption, all that stuff. Doesn't have to be anything special right now. And then the other things we want to do are our database down here. So our database name, our database user, and our database password. Eventually, host will also want to be an environment variable, and I believe a port as well, maybe. So database name equals example, database user equals example, very secure, database pass equals example. So those should all get pulled in from the environment file now. What we could do is copy all that and put an example in here for the junior developers who join your project. A name, a username, secret password. Okay. I don't think it's actually caring about the git ignore because this isn't a Git repository yet. I believe if I go to the terminal and we run git in here, oh, it is run. Okay, so we'll have to figure that out. But the final thing I want to do for the end of this video, just like setting up all the stuff before we get into all the fun activities, is I told you earlier about how pip for each shows you all the packages you have installed. So we've installed ASCII React Django, Django Environ, some stuff for postgres, and SQL parse. I'm not sure if we need SQL parse, but I'll figure that out later. What you can do is you can run pip freeze and then you can pipe it into a requirements file. And what this does is it takes all those packages, puts them in a file so you know these are the packages you need to run this project. And that way you could actually delete your Vim, which is sort of like your node modules as I talked about, and then you can still reinstall everything. So requirements.txt is sort of like a package.json if you're familiar with JavaScript environments. Environments are like node modules. So there we go. I think I'm going to stop there. In the next video, we're going to set up our app and define a model and define an endpoint, maybe do all of that. And then we'll ask the big question, hey, how do we actually fetch data from this thing we've created? What is Django? How does it turn into an API? Because we'll need Django REST framework as well. So we're going to install that. Lots to get through, but we'll get through it. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.